Thanks for joining me as I start in Alaska and head through the western United States, Central America, South America, and maybe, if everything goes right, Argentina. So yeah, I'm in Palenque. It's like 7:30, 7:20, and Dave and Renee and I are heading to Guatemala today. Been a long time coming. I'm ready to get there, but it's going to be a longer day as far as miles. It's 100 to the border, and then 100 and change to the town we're going to. And I'm nervous. I have a crick in my neck. And it's supposed to rain a lot of the way, and then just crossing borders, stressful. But we'll see how I do. So that morning, when I set out with Dave and Renee, who I had met in Real de Catorce a month and a half earlier, it was a different feeling. I had ridden nearly the whole length of Mexico by myself, and I was worried the whole time about cartels or about crooked cops making me bribe, or just general bad guys wanting to hustle me or rob me, whatever. And none of that happened. And I had planned on joining the two of them earlier, but they were riding KTMs, and they had some mechanical issues. Surprised, not surprised? I don't know. Anyways, but when we set out that morning, I felt confident. I felt like, man, I'm going to be okay. I might ride all the way to Panama with these guys. And they're super friendly, super nice, very generous and kind people. So I thought, man, I found my people. And we headed towards the border. And I thought everything's going to go smooth. And it did not go as planned. So first off, when we got to the border, on the Mexican side, we turned off our bikes and dismounted, and I was like, what in the hell is that noise? It sounded like some teenagers were up on the hillside with a loudspeaker trying to make scary, like, Halloween noises. And then finally I just asked a woman at customs, I said, what is that sound? And they said, it's the howler monkey. So I was like, oh my God, it was so much louder than I imagined. And in any case, we went in and got the paperwork sorted on the Mexican side, stamping out our passport. And I was a little bit ahead of them, so I went over onto the Guatemalan side and started that process. And these people were really friendly too. The guys that fumigated my bike and did a couple of the other inspections were very kind. The guy that stamped my passport was fine. But then the final stop was Senor Grumpy Pants. Holy crap. He was outside smoking a cigarette. And when I walked up with my paperwork, he's like, like I was totally inconveniencing him. And then he went around in the trailer. What I didn't know at the time was Renee was back in the Mexican office getting her stuff done. And she took a step backwards and fell into a little ditch inside the building. It was like a little thing for a potted plant, kind of like a drainage thing. And I had seen it, and I thought, that's stupid. People could trip over that. Renee did. And she had previously injured her ankle, and now she twisted and fell. So when I saw her walking up, Dave was, like acting like a crutch, and they were walking up, and I'm like, oh God, this is bad. This is bad. Anyways, Mr. Grumpy Border Aduanas guy is going through the paperwork, and he's just instantly pissed off at me. I've never crossed the border into Guatemala before, and he's done this thousands of times, but he decided to show me how powerful he was. And, you don't have power in this situation. You have to just roll with it, and you have to say, yes, sir, no, sir. And he didn't just do it to me, he did it to Dave too. And Dave clearly had a person who was injured with him, and that didn't evoke any empathy from this guy at all. So I he gave me this list of things to do, which didn't make any sense. You got to run up to some, I don't know, shoe shine kid and pay him something, and then he takes a picture with his phone, and with my phone, and then you go back a couple times, and it was really confusing. And the guy, he spoke a little bit of English, but he kept yelling at me saying, "Did you page? Did you page?" And I was like, I don't know what that means. He was trying to say, "Did you pay? Like, did I pay the little kid?" And eventually we sorted that out. And when I was up paying the little kid, he had gotten my paperwork and Dave's paperwork mixed up, and he was also yelling at Dave. And he took one of Dave's pieces of paper and went and threw it in the trash. So you're like, God, dude, maybe decaf next time. And he was just a pain in the ass the whole time. But as we were riding away, I thought he got what he wanted. He had his little power trip, and I got everything stamped and into the country of Guatemala. Here's the thing, though. Renee had this injury, and we still had 100 miles to go to the border. Or sorry, not to the border, to the hotel in Flores, Guatemala. So she did an outstanding job. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't whimpering. She just toughed through it, and eventually we got to our hotel. It just started pouring like crazy when we pulled up to the Hotel Maya International, but it was a lovely place with great rooms and pretty good food. And I was amazed at the wildlife there. I saw this crazy bird, and I thought I had maybe discovered some new species or something, but the thing hopped up on my table like a pigeon. So apparently they're common and not really a big deal there, but it was a beautiful bird. The next morning, I went for a walk around to look at some of the critters and to explore the little island that's in Flores. It's kind of a touristy place with lots of pretty buildings and such. But I didn't know what the deal was with her leg. Turns out she broke it. So I had been excited to have these new riding buddies, and now I was maybe going to be back on my own. But when they went to the doctor in Flores, and they took the X-rays, and it's like, yeah, your ankle's broken. So as daunting as it was for me, Renee had to hop on a plane and spend the next like 12 hours transferring 4 different airports back to the States to get her surgery for her ankle. And Dave, on the Dave, on the other hand, poor guy, had to go back through that grumpy pants border guy, and potentially deal with that guy again, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, because he was shuttling the bikes to Cancun, but unfortunately their trip was over. So that left me no choice but to make the long journey from Flores all the way down to Rio Dulce. And when I got there, the GPS took me to some farm, and eventually I called the place I was staying, and they said, "Oh, you can't drive here. You have to take a boat." So I hopped on a boat, and with this guy, and the accommodations were really rather nice. The body of water goes out to the Caribbean, and there's apparently manatees and crocodiles in this lake, but very comfortable accommodations. I was the only one there, and I had a wonderful traditional Guatemalan dish for dinner. Across from me was this cool fortress. Got to fly my drone there a little bit, but it was a lovely stay in Rio Dulce. Eventually, I made my way to Antigua, which has a high percentage of Mayan people living there, or in the surrounding areas. And the architecture in this town is just over the top. Everywhere you look, there's an amazing museum or an ancient church. It's just a beautiful, beautiful city with cobblestone streets and wonderful restaurants every which way you look. And then the volcanoes are surrounding it. Sometimes you can sit at an outside restaurant and watch the lava flow down the volcano. A very picturesque and quaint town. I had been debating on whether to go up to the volcano. All the hiking guides were booked, but there was a way to take a 4x4 up there. So I went up with a tour group and slept in a tiny little sort of miniature Quonset hut with 6 people. And I have to say, I was very uncomfortable for about 24 hours, either super hot or super cold. But the views, I think, in the end paid off. I mean, how many times do you get to see a volcano going off pretty close to where you're standing? And it just got better as the evening came on. You could look back at Antigua and see how high up you were, but then the lava started to flow at night and you could really see it. It was absolutely stunning. Next, I headed to Lake Atitlan, and I asked the guy at my hotel, I said, is this road, I showed him my map, is this road paved? And he's like, oh, absolutely, yes, sir. And when I started riding around the lake and the pavement turned to dirt, I was like, oh crap, because I had seen the Itchy Boots video where she is going on a dirt path, and when the road got challenging, the banditos hide in the forest, and then they come get you while you're, trying to lift your bike up or just slowed down so much. But I learned later that was on the other side of the lake, and the road, even though it was gravel, it was mostly fine. But for a couple minutes, I was like, man, what have I gotten myself into? And I also had a section here where totally no warnings whatsoever, but there was a bridge that was out, so I had to do a river crossing, but my GoPro was not working at the time. So I had my first ever river crossing with the Tenere 700 fully loaded, and then I kept finding myself on these dirt roads when I did not want to be. But it had some great views of Lake Atitlan, and towards the end, the switchbacks just got a little nauseating because it was super steep, and of course it doesn't show that on the camera, but trust me, it's not an easy one. I was really looking forward to arriving at San Marcos on the other side of the lake because I had seen lots of pictures and it looked really beautiful. And I had great accommodations
at the Dragon Hotel, and they had a great restaurant which I ate at most nights, and just a peaceful vibe. I will warn you, if you have a low tolerance for men with man buns, there are more yoga instructors than there are people practicing yoga in this town, and they all try to outdo each other with their accessorizing and tattoos and just meditating in very, very, very public places so you can see how deep they are, and it kind of ruined it for me. But beautiful place nonetheless, and because it had kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, I eventually made my way back to Antigua, which was on the way in any case. And overall, I have to say that Guatemala it blew my mind with how beautiful it was. So many things were interesting and unique. The Mayan people were very friendly, and I always asked them if I could take their picture, and sometimes I'd buy something from them. But then I met these two at a tire shop, and they allowed me to go with them into the next countries.